Good morning, everybody. We've got the lovely Garry and James giving me some big waves. Hi,
Good
guys.
morning, the lovely Garry.
Morning.
I'm gonna put
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. We're talking all things video content to help you stand out on social media. We've got the amazing Garry and James who will be giving some straight talking advice and insight on how to create engaging content for your social media. They're going to be talking through the overview of what video works best on each platform, some ideas and editing tips and filming tips around sound, lighting, composition, and a little bit more. So this is in partnership with Lloyds Bank Academy. Thank you to Lloyds Bank for partnering with us on this session today. We've got loads more coming up for the rest of the year as well, so keep an eye out on that. If you want more advice, it's all free. You can go to the Lloyds Bank Academy website, and we've got some more resources for you at the end of the session too. Please get involved in the chat, say hello, let us know your business. I can see a few people getting involved there. We always like to know who's on the calls with us. If you've got any questions as we go, please put them into the Q&A section. It gets very busy in the chat, so just make it a little bit easier for all of us to see your questions. And we are recording today, so don't worry if you miss out on anything. You can always catch up. We'll send it to your email inbox this week, and then you can catch up on everything over there. Garry James, I'm going to hand over to you guys. I'll be back at the end.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you very much for having us. I will kick things off. So, yes, indeed, we are, in fact, the amazing Garry and James. I'm amazing too. We've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing all manner of different marketing things, but we've been working on social channels. We've been creating content for all sorts of different things. We've worked on big projects with multi-camera bits of work, big rig lighting rigs, all manner of stuff like that, and we've been producing tiny small pieces of social content that have got to be done in an incredibly small amount of time. And we've done, we made mistakes along the way. We've done things well, and we've done things not so well, and we've learned a lot. And I think the big things that we've learned is that actually it's all about the creativity. Video doesn't have to be intimidating. It initially seems intimidating, and these are some examples of things that we've done. Really small number of people, stuff that that I've shot, or stuff that I've worked with other people to shoot for brands like JCB, for small local businesses, and there's just a huge amount you can do. You don't need loads of expensive kit. You don't need hugely complicated processes, and all. You don't always need a panda suit, but it is encouraged. It really does. It's definitely encouraged. So there's all sorts you can do, and it's fun. It's actually my favorite thing to do. Like I absolutely love working on a video project. I don't particularly love dogs, but I did love working on this one with these two dogs.
Understatement. You hate dogs. Yeah, but I like working with dogs, and you actually enjoyed this.
But I do like it when a dog does what you want them to, and these two were very professional. So yeah, this is the thing. Like if you plan it out and you do you know exactly what you're going to try and achieve. Video work can be loads of fun, and the end result really does elevate your marketing. It make everything looks more professional. It looks more impressive. I think and naturally it's more engaging. So what we're going to go through today is we're going to go through a bit about having a plan, how that will make a massive difference to the end result if you go into it with a plan. Think about where you're going to be posting stuff. We're going to go through how you come up with ideas, give you a few ideas as well. Then we've got some real specifics about how to film video and make it look great. And then some ideas for editing, a few examples of things along the way.
I'm going to get a question. I'm going to hit a question straight away because it's there. Why not? And I think it's quite a big one, and we'll touch on it. But actually, you and me talked a lot about this. We've done loads of stuff, and actually we've done most of it around the fact that people are just going to use this little boy, a phone. And the reality is, yes, James is going to talk about equipment at the end, and actually it is worth investing in some equipment at some points for various different reasons. Yes. But in actual fact, you can do things with just your phone.
Yeah, I mean,
there's loads you can do with just your phone.
The truth is, this thing is more expensive probably than you're actually going to spend on a camera anyway.
Yeah.
It depends what you're doing. Like it really does. If video and photography are going to be a really key part of you being able to tell your story or get your stuff out there, then yeah, you're going to need to invest. Probably invest more in in buying the equipment, but much more than that, invest more in learning to use it properly, taking it off also and doing that stuff. But to get started, you don't that's the first piece of advice that we would give is don't put a load of barriers in the way of getting a load of equipment or anything like that. Pick up your phone, plan it out. You can achieve everything we've achieved. Every piece of footage you'll see in here was shot on a phone without any additional equipment at all. That was kind of the whole point. We wanted to do everything with no gimbals, no other equipment, no separate recording stuff. So just to show you can absolutely achieve that stuff without having all that gear and everything to attach to it.
But I'm gonna be the fun police first of all. I know you tell me off for saying this is the boring bit, but it's not the boring bit. But the reality is you're all probably sitting there going, I want to see some really cool ideas you can come up with and great techniques and everything else. And all of that's amazing. And all of that will come. I promise you, James is going to give you some really some stuff that you'll go, I didn't realize it was so easy. And that's kind of the message we want is this is way easier than you think. But the reality is, however good you do, you could have the best, you could go and hire the best videographer in the world, everything else. But if you don't have a good plan, if you don't have a good strategy about how you're going to go about it, the whole thing will just not resonate. So we want to start with just talking at the very, very start about we want to plan. And that starts with the story. And that starts with the thing that we always tell everybody, and it's whichever part of marketing we're talking about. And it's exactly the same thing when you're creating video, any form of content. Why? Why on earth should someone care? This isn't you putting something out. This is the classic thing. People tell the world, we project. I'm amazing. Look at all these amazing things I do. Look at my stuff. Look at my videos.
He does.
I do that all the time. And James quite rightly tells me, no. Why should someone care? Why is it they should watch your video? What is their reason for watching your video? So that's where we always start. Before you create anything, don't I know the world's full of people that will tell you, just go inspiration and just do things and everything else. That's wonderful and it works for a few people. But the reality is for most of us, the best way to be successful at anything, and certainly when it comes to creating good video, is actually why? What's the story? And then by doing that, you force yourself into the classic things about building content, which is how am I going to start? What's the middle? What's the end? And I tell you what, whether you're doing a 15-second video, a 30-second video, a 15-minute YouTube tutorial, or a 2-hour-long piece film, you still need to do the same thing. Obviously, depending on how big the thing's going to be, will depend on how much time you have to spend on it. But I'll say we do a lot of 15 to 30-second videos. Nearly one of us does one every single day about a story that we'll put up there. But even for a 15-second video, I'll still stop and I'll go, what am I going to start with? How do I want it to end? And what's the big chunk in the middle?
Yeah, even if it's one shot, you have to think about
absolutely.
That. That's a really important part.
So you really do, come on, what is the story? What am I going to come up with? And how is that going to ultimately connect with your audience? Because, anybody who's ever watched us present, we bore on for our lives about the fact that if you think like a customer, marketing will always be successful. And this is no different. If you understand who your customer is, if you understand what they're about, you're going to connect with them. You've got to understand the sort of messages, the sort of style, the tone of voice, the type of video. Do they like comedy-based stuff? Is your audience someone's going to grab, or do they like shock, or do they like just really straightforward, informative? Understanding all these things are going to help you connect with your audience, and it's all part of the whole process. We also talk about, ultimately, how long does your video? And there's so many aspects, and James is going to talk about the length of videos and stuff a little bit as we go along, but right at the start, if you go out there and you don't understand how long it's going to be, how are you going to produce it? You'll end up, and it's combined with the idea of what sort of shots you want, because if you don't combine those two things, you understand how long you're going to be, what sort of shots you need within it, you'll end up doing one of two things. You'll either go out there and waste hours and hours producing loads and loads of stuff that you don't ultimately need, and then waste loads and loads of hours having to edit it all down because you haven't understood what shots do I need, how long is it going to be, what format's going to be, who's the audience for it, or you'll do the opposite. You'll produce something really, really short. You'll go out there, get some shots, you'll get back, and you'll suddenly go, "Oh, I really need that." Yeah, forgot that shit. We've all done it. If we're honest, we've all done it. And then you have to go out and do it again, and then it becomes bitty. It's all cut up a bit too much, and it doesn't flow as well. So you really need to think about what shots do I need and how long. Because at the end of the day, if I want to get out there and get a message across about a very short webinar that we're doing, we might go out there and just 15 seconds it's done. But then if someone wants to go out there and research and learn about how to, let's say, just as a totally random example, how to attach a spring to a trampoline. For anybody who doesn't know, we produced a trampoline video about 5 or 6 years ago. James had a lot of hair then, by the way. I watched it the other day.
Probably way more.
122,000 people have watched that video. But they go out there, they're not expecting 15 seconds. They know it'll be a bit long, but they don't want it to be hours. Whereas, you know, for example, if I want to learn how to build a wall in my garden, I've never built a wall in my garden, but if I went there, I'd expect a longer video. So again, understand what the audience is expecting, and that will give you the parameters of how you work. And then once you get going, there's one thing you all must do. Must have a goal. I don't want people, you know, I'm just going to create some video today. So it's like, for what reason? What is the end goal? By understanding what your end goal is, what you're trying to achieve, it gives you so much focus. It gives you so much focus on how you're going to produce, what you're going to produce. It may be as simple and as straightforward as, I want to sell some product on the back of it. I want to sell some tickets, whatever it is. It may be slightly more transcendental and ethereal. You know, I just want to raise awareness. I want to, you know, make people more aware of me. Or it might be, you know, something as slightly, it might seem odd at the start, but gathering data. I want to put an idea out there. I want to see if people interact with it. People are interested in it. Could this be a thing I do? I want to try different times a day, different types of video. You've always got to have a reason for putting it out there. And by doing that, it forces you to measure the success. And that's the thing we want you to do with your video. You're going to put it out there. If you want your video to get better, you won't get it perfect first time, as James will talk about. But the more you understand what you're trying to achieve, the more you measure it, the more you can go, that was a success, that bit worked, that bit didn't work. For example, if your goal is to increase engagement, what does that actually mean? Does that mean that you actually want people to watch the video for longer? So we need to, you know, that'll be one of the things we measure. Will it be about the level of people that start following as a result? Think about the end goal and the goals leading up to it, because, you know, great, I want to sell 3 products on the back of this video. But to do that, does that mean 20 people have to go through and show an interest? Understand the goals you need the video to achieve, because that will help you decide how the video works.
And that is one of the absolute best things about video content, is that you've got this analytics on pretty much every platform. You've got the ability to look and see how long did people watch for, at what point did they drop off? And you can start to understand, did people, you know, if everyone drops off before the midpoint and that's where your call to action is, no wonder you didn't get any goal, you know, you didn't achieve any of your goals on the back of it. So you can analyze that and you can then adjust accordingly, which is much harder if you just have a static ad. You don't know really whether people looked at it. Did they like it? Did they not like it? At least you can start to understand that. But the biggest thing that you're going to have to deal with is the fact that the truth is that they say 1/3 of people drop off within the first 30 seconds. Now that's, you know, that's quite a lot of people. But in truth, when we, you know, we talk to Meta all the time about, especially about advertising and all of this kind of stuff on social, and they say you've got like 1 or 2 seconds to get a hook in there to get people to stop scrolling. Especially if you're looking on social, you know, it's like you're sort of swiping your way through Reels or TikTok or whatever like that. You've got a fraction of a second to be able to grab someone's attention. So you need to think about what's the hook. And that usually means probably not necessarily telling a story in a natural narrative of the beginning, the middle, and the end. You can't wait for the end, for the payoff. You've got to get people in early, and then you've got to, it's like a Netflix show, isn't it? And no Netflix show starts at the beginning. They all start in the middle, and then they go back, and then they finish at the end at some point, you know, 20 episodes later. So think about what's going to be the hook. Is it something controversial, a bit of a hot take? We just put, you know, we put it out the other day, so don't sign up for our next workshop. That sounds a bit interesting and people are more likely to maybe pay attention and watch that. Maybe it's something funny. Maybe just like a funny face, maybe some kind of, you know, something that's going to get people to stop and have a look at. Maybe it's something strange, maybe something unusual, something different. These are the sorts of things that you can think about, but something strange, like a bit, you know, that does all those things. Strange, a hot take. So we've got a few examples here. And these are examples of things you can use. You can use these as, you know, text on the screen. You can use them as saying the thing. You know, even the hook can just be saying something loud. You know, you obviously bear in mind, not everyone's got the audio on, so that might not work every time, but you can use this kind of stuff. So, you know, again, loads of different ideas for things you can potentially try there, again, depending on what type of business you've got, but it does work for everybody. So what, you know, you use a couple of examples here of things that we, you know, particularly like.
One I can't believe this only costs. One we've used it a lot, and I've also seen it for product. What I like about it, it works for both product and services based businesses. We've used it because I often think it's a barrier. Cost is always a barrier, and people like look at things, they start watching a video and they just sort of go, oh, that's quite good, but I probably couldn't afford it, or it won't be for me. I won't be able to buy that. So actually, sometimes just take that barrier down straight away. People look at us. We present, we present videos. Wonderful people like Small Business Britain with Lloyds, TSB, and people like that. And people think, oh wow, they must be really expensive. Those guys, they must be really difficult to work with. But the reality is, we do loads of free stuff. We do loads of funded stuff and things like that. So often we'll put videos out there going, did you realize you can get this, this, and this, and we can run this for you for just this much or for free or whatever else. And it immediately breaks down that barrier of people going, oh, right, okay, well, there's no reason I wouldn't watch the rest of the video. And it's the same thing with products. Sometimes people look at a product, they start seeing a product, and they're sort of going, that looks expensive. And they won't watch the rest of the video because they just like, their time is precious and they're not going to spend it. So I think sometimes putting cost up front and just sort of wowing people, it really is a statement of fact, grabs people's attention, really does work.
Yeah, you could have, again, you could show, look at all this stuff. People love to see, something exciting at the beginning. So again, I love the one about, I actually really like the negative ones, the negative experience, the one like, instead of doing this, worse experience, try this, or what I ordered versus what I got is a really good example of one. So you can show this awful thing that you potentially received and then go back to telling the story about what you ordered and this is what you got, and then maybe that leads into you telling a story about your product. So let's say maybe you're a crafting business that is dealing with, you're selling your stuff on on Etsy or something like that, and then you can look at some of the other similar things that you see that are your competitors and what you actually got. Now, we're not saying you're going to be specifically negative about lots of other people, but you can really highlight a customer pain by doing that, and they do like to see that. So that's a good way to approach that. Next up, make sure you've got a call to action. This is really, absolutely vital, that you've got a call to action in there. So again, depends where you put it, depends on how long you think your audience is going to watch that video for. It's a big risk to put a call to action at the very beginning because that's not going to be a particularly exciting hook for people. If they feel like they've been sold to right from the off,
absolutely,
there's a good chance they're going to be on their way. But it's a big risk also waiting to the very end to put your call to action in, because there's a decent chance that they're going to have dropped off by the end. You look at the tail of most videos and it slopes off towards the end. Not many people watch right over to the end. Think about what that is. One call to action is all you need. Don't try and have 15 different call to actions in there.
Yeah.
Think about all the different things you could potentially use. And if you're using, certainly if you're using Instagram or social platforms, try and avoid reverting to the standard link in the bio, chuck everything in a big link tree and send people off to there. Try and keep people on the platform. That's where you want them to be. The algorithm of each platform likes it way better if you say things like, if you're on Instagram, get people to save it. Same on TikTok. Get people to direct message you. That's a great way of getting a contact straight away. But do polls, maybe ask people to follow you. If you're on YouTube, get them to subscribe, ring the bell. These are all the things that you want to do as your way of engaging people and keep people, keep people on the platform. That's going to get them coming back to you again and again and again. Whatever you do, make sure you've got that call to action at a certain point. A few other things just to think about when you're planning out your video. Are you going to use people? Do you need people in your video? If you are, maybe you need actors or models, or maybe you're just going to use friends and family. Mostly, I mean, even with our larger clients, they will still, the first and foremost, they would try and use friends and family.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, friends and family can be hard work because one, they're not always the prettiest, and two, they're not
the prettiest.
They're not always the most professional.
That's more, yeah.
Both things can be challenging because the truth is, when you work with a model or an actor, it's night and day, and you get what you want far quicker. They will give you loads more options. They'll just be way more versatile and way more used to taking direction for what you want to try and achieve. But you're going to have to deal with the fact they're going to be a lot more expensive. You're absolutely going to have to deal with things like licensing and all that kind of stuff as well. So there are big pros and cons, which ultimately usually means friends and family are a great, great place to start when you're trying to do stuff, or colleagues, or putting people in the background, or just not showing faces. These are ways of doing it. Again, think about where you're going to need to shoot. If you're going to be, hiring a studio, or maybe you've got a room that you can use as a studio, that's awesome. Maybe you can get if you've got products, you can get a lighting box. We're going to talk a bit about products as well, and you can make your location in a small space in your home or your office or wherever. If you're outdoors, you're going to have to worry about things like weather. You're going to have to worry about time of day. You're going to have to consider the fact that the light is going to change during the day. So if you're trying to film over the course of a day, but you want it to seem like it's all at the same time, that's going to be an issue. The sun's going to move around and stuff like that. So you do have to think about that. Are you going to need equipment? Are you going to need lighting? All things worth planning out at the very beginning, so you've got that lovely list of this is what I need for the day, so that when you go to do your shoot, even if it's only, like I said, even if it's only 15 seconds, even if it's only a really short piece of content, you're going to be prepped. You're going to have everything that you need.
Yeah.
So next up, think about where you are going to post. So a little bit on sizes. Getting into the nitty gritty here. Obviously, this is being recorded and it'll be shared. I'm not going to read it, go through every little detail in there, but you can go through and have a look at it later on. But by and large, we have a number of set different sizes. We've got our 16:9 landscape, which is like size of a TV, size of a phone, this kind of shape. Then we've also got the portrait equivalent. So if we're on TikTok, Instagram, generally most mobile social platforms, that's a great way to make sure you use all the real estate. You're filling up the screen in a portrait view. So that's what we're getting on those channels. Now on Facebook, any in-feed stuff is going to be shown actually on a 2:3, which is a bit like a 6:4 kind of photo size, which is what the trainer's one there is in that size. So it's slightly cropped in. In general, square is great because square is really versatile. It fits on every platform, and you don't have that big issue where you've got a landscape piece of footage that's then had a big central crop taken out of it. So once again, it goes back to the planning. Think about where you're going to post it, and then make a plan for the, for the way you're going to shoot that video. A lot of the time, what we do is we will shoot portrait shot, landscape shot, portrait shot, landscape shot for every shot we're going to do. If we know we're going to want this piece of footage to be used in lots of different places.
Makes it more versatile, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. The other thing you can do is if you shoot landscape wide at a high level of quality, you'll be able to punch closer and make it and crop it tighter without losing any quality along the way. So just think about what platform you're going to use. A few sort of bits of information here. So Facebook, when we're talking about a shared video post, this can be portrait or landscape. They don't really mind. You've got 4 hours. So, I mean, if you can keep someone on a Facebook post for 4 hours, you're doing a great job. If it goes on to mobile, it's going to be 2:3. Ads are always landscape. So you know, if you're doing an ad, you want your piece of content to be an ad, then it will be a landscape ad. And if it's carousel, if you're using photos, but as a video, then those are always going to be square. TikTok, unsurprisingly, is that 9:16 portrait, 60 seconds long. For everything, for paid and organic. Instagram, you've got more options. You've got loads of options on Instagram. It will accept pretty much any different thing, but it will, it won't look great. If you go for a landscape thing, video, you're going to find you take a little central crop. Square is actually really good for Instagram posts because one, they fit nicely on the grid, and two, they don't take up the whole of the screen, which is quite nice for people when they're scrolling through. However, when you're looking at reels, portrait 9:16 again is what we're looking for, and 60 seconds long. Over on YouTube, do what you like, go crazy. 4K, this is, I mean, you can, absolutely full maximum resolution. So again, if you're shooting with the purpose of a really high quality piece of video content for YouTube, I absolutely recommend shooting at 4K if you can, and then upload that. That's going to look perfect. 16:9, which is your widescreen, or 4:3, which is the old school kind of cropped in, more square shape. They'll accept pretty much any file type, but there are file types that they prefer. So definitely worth, if you're creating content for YouTube, it's worth looking that up. But they also have shorts, and this is a great way of repurposing your Reels content, your TikTok content. Again, produce it, take it out of those platforms, and then natively bring it into shorts, because those are 60 seconds long. They show up within people's feeds when they're looking through YouTube. So it is a great way of getting, if you've got a little piece of information you want to articulate, or perhaps you want to tease a longer explainer video, this can be a great way to go about that. And then finally, on your website, this is a great place to do, if you really want to tell a bit more of a story, the people are there for one reason usually, and that is to find out more about you. They're not browsing around. So you have got much more of an option there to tell a bigger story. But maybe you're just shooting something that's going to be a background video. Maybe it's in the header, you've just got a bit of text and you want something to play in the background. Again, think about how that's going to be used and how it's going to work. And again, when you're looking at a website, you could be hosting that directly on your website, but then that's going to use up a chunk of your server space. So you might actually be better off popping it on Vimeo or YouTube, where you can embed that content into your site downside being you'll often get those suggested videos thrown up at the end of a video that's played unless you know the ways to avoid that from happening, which is possible.
Right. Fun Police is back. However, great the footage is. You could hire the best videographer in the world. You could have amazing equipment. You could do it. It could be the most beautiful looking thing in the world. If you don't have a good idea, it isn't going to work. The world is full of, we have so many times we look at videos and we think, oh my God, that's so ugly. And they've done this and they've done this, but it's gone viral. And the reason it's gone viral is because it's a great idea and people love it. And there's a great hook and people are attracted to it. And the truth is, a good idea will always trump great footage. And it's so important you remember that. A good idea will always be more important than how well we want you to do both. And that's sort of why we cover all of that in the session. But the reality is, if you don't have a good idea that's attractive and tailored towards your audience, then it doesn't matter how good it looks, they will soon tune out. They won't stick with you for it. So, it's all one of good and you're thinking, yeah, great, you're in your ivory tower and you've got a wonderful team and they're just in there and they're all, you probably sit down with a bunch of people and you can all brainstorm, you sit around a lovely desk and you have a cup of coffee and everyone's wonderful. I'm just here by myself. How do I come up with all these great ideas? Well, the truth is, other people is a massively good start. So like if there are ways of brainstorming, you can get other people involved, colleagues, if you've got team, friends and family, even your actual customers in your audience, maybe you can get them involved as well. Don't be afraid, because the one thing Will say, and James always tells me this story, you won't know the person that's going to come up with the best idea. You assume you do, but the reality is, we once did a session coming up with brainstorming ideas with a big hotel chain, and at the start it was like, we're going to get all the big senior people in the room because they're clever people, and we'll get a couple of marketing people and maybe a salesperson, and between them we'll come up with, we said, look, can we have people from everywhere in the business? And actually, that's because you just don't know where the idea is going to come from. In that particular session, a receptionist came up with the best idea because she's close to the customer. She understood what the customer's about. So she came up with some really great ideas that other people would never have thought about. So get other people involved. The more people you get involved, the better. It doesn't matter. 20 bad ideas, you end up with one good idea. And that's the whole point, is share it, get people involved. It really, really helps you. Another thing, and I'm just going to grab you in a little bit closer because I don't want this to get out too far. This is a big secret.
This is one of our big secrets.
This is one of our really big secrets. There's a couple of little things out there that you could use. One of them's called Google. One of them's known as this big concept called social media. Okay, just keep that to yourself. But we found them to be indispensable. You go out there and you do. I'm being an idiot for the sake of being an idiot. But the point is, there's loads of good stuff out there and you don't have to come up with fresh, brand new, brilliant ideas every single time. Look at what your peers are doing. Look at the competition. Go and look at people that don't necessarily look at people that do exactly the same as you. Go and look at people who've got the same audience as you. Look at the ideas they come up with and go, do you know what? That works for my audience. So I can transition that. I can make that work for my particular product or service. That's the whole point. You're trying to find ideas that you can translate and work for your own particular service. And if you can do that, then and that's the whole point. And the point being, like that point at the end there, such an important thing to remember. The idea is, it's not about you. It's about, does your customer care? And as I keep getting reminded by this gentleman, not only do they care, but also, do they really want to hear it from you? Like, it might be a point that's really important to them, but are they going to go, why am I listening to you tell me that? So think about, will your customer care? And also, will they care that it's coming from you? And the one final little very quick thing at the end there is also that, like, we call it the ideas drawer. I think more creative people than me use words like swipe file.
Yeah,
there you go. It's very technical term for you there. But basically, the ideas drawer for us is every time you see an idea, you kind of go, I can't use all these things at once. I just want to find somewhere that I can put it in that drawer, put it away, so that when I need to generate ideas, I've got a backlog. We do it all the time. We've just got a Google sheet. Every time anybody sees anything, they either put a link in there or they just type something in very, very quickly, and it's permanent. You can always get to it. It's on your phone. It's on your computer, whatever else.
Yeah, the save. I mean, that's what the save function on Instagram or TikTok is perfect for. Create an album. Put anytime you see a piece of content, you think, oh, that's good. I could do a version of that, but a bit better. Save it at that moment in time and come back to it later and go and have a little rummage through and see what's in there.
100%
good stuff in there. Yeah.
So, generating ideas. Here's a few examples of ideas that we've very quickly put together. Personally, I mean, all of these work. You've got to work the ones that work best for your audience. The one I love the most on here is the explain a process one. I like it because it gives you a little bit of the behind the scenes. it gives a little bit of product demos, and it also gives you a real chance to get your personality as well, which is a thing we love. The more you can get your personality across into the video, it might not also be necessarily your personality as in your face. It might just be the way you explain it, the way you do it. But it's a really good show. I love explaining videos, and I think they work on multiple platforms. They can be really short, they can be really long. I think they're quite flexible depending on how you work.
Yeah, and I just always love the personal stories. I think that's, again, we always talk about your small business advantage. This is you, this is your history, everything that brought you up until this point, and customers love to relate to those things. So if you're able to tell a bit of that story, I think they can be incredibly powerful, incredibly interesting. But I would also encourage you to consider user-generated content as well. The wonderful thing is, if you've got a great product, especially, it looks really nice, it's in beautiful packaging, there's a really good chance you're going to incentivize other people to create content for you. So if that happens, send out stuff with them, encourage them to do that for you, and then you can remix that content. You can use a piece of content someone else posted, and you can remix that and post it yourself as well. So that's a function of the social channels as well. So you're able to use pieces of content other people have done to create your own content as well. So you don't have to be doing it all yourself.
Now, one very important thing at this point, there are people out there who will be sitting there going, this is all wonderful, but I don't want to be on camera. As much as we would love you to be, and we know that it works, and we know there's that connection, particularly for small businesses, people buy from people and all that sort of great stuff. The reality is, for some people, they just don't want to do it. But that doesn't mean you can't do video. Okay, there are so many different, what James always terms as faceless, which I still think is quite a horror.
Headless would be worse.
Headless would be worse, yes. But faceless video, I don't know. I think just missing a head wouldn't be that bad. A face would be really creepy. But the point is, there's loads of ways of doing it. There are, hands-on demonstrations. I think the point of view that, showing your process is absolutely perfect for this. The camera's there, so you don't see you see you doing. You're seeing it so often with how people create, crafting videos, or how to do that. People showing how to make cakes or different recipes and stuff like that. Works brilliantly well. I think they're absolutely fantastic for that sort of thing. Also, again, it doesn't even have to be your voice. If you want to do and you create a good video, you can get someone else to do the voiceover. Quality voiceover is a massively important thing, but also that's combined, and we'll talk about captions in a minute, but that's combined with caption because, as James quite rightly said, there is a good percentage of people who don't have sound on, so you need to remember things like that. And don't be afraid to use animations and memes and things like that, because it breaks things up. It doesn't all have to be the same thing. It's not all I'm talking to camera or I'm showing you how something works. The more you can mix things up, the more you understand your customer, the better you're going to work.
Absolutely. Right. So now we've got a good plan. Now we've got an idea. We know what we're trying to achieve. We know where it's going.
Let's go film.
We want to think about what we're filming. And again, we're going to focus entirely on filming using phones. Admittedly, I will at first, a word of caution. We mostly work on an iPhone. I think a lot of people do, but we have got considerations here for Android stuff. Obviously, the number of different phones is very wide and varied, and what settings they have differs. But the principles here are all the same, and they will work for absolutely everything. So first up, we should think a little bit about the lenses that we're using when we're looking at our camera. So most phones, have got your ultra wide setting, which is the sort of a 0.5 or a 0.6. Most Androids have got a 0.6 for some reason. It's likely to be different. Then you've usually got a 1x, which is your wide shot. That's going to give you a good establishing shot. Telephoto ×3 or ×5, depending again on what phone you're looking at. Always worth bearing in mind and understand this about your phone is, look out for the digital zooms. We don't really like those. We don't really want to bother with them, because what they're doing is you look at this phone here, this has got 3 lenses. Every one of those is a real lens and is going to give me a correct view of it. Now, in the middle of those is a 2x and a 3x, and it's a 2x. And what that 2x lens is doing is effectively just taking the 1x version and just cropping it in tighter. So it's doing a digital zoom, which means that I'm going to get a drop in quality when we do that. I'd rather, if I'm going to do that, I'd rather do that later in editing. So don't worry about doing that. So try and stick to your native lenses. When you're filming, again, think about whether you're going to film in HD, which is 1080p, or 4K. Again, if your phone has got the ability to shoot 4K, or if your camera has, I'd encourage you to shoot in 4K. It is going to mean you're going to get these much bigger file sizes, but it's going to mean you can digitally zoom in by 2x and still have a full 1080p HD image and lots of different options when it comes to cropping. Whereas if you're at 1080p and then you try and crop in, you're going to get that drop in quality. And frames is this is something that a lot of people don't always understand about. So generally when we're shooting, we want to be shooting at 30 frames. That's the number of frames that appear in a second. So 30 frames is going to give us a nice smooth bit of video content. If we shoot at 60, then the main benefit of that, yes, the footage is going to seem really smooth, but actually the real benefit there is that we could slow that down by 50% and still have 30 frames. So we're going to get a nice smooth bit of footage, even at slow motion. Then if we go up to the slow-mo settings, which most cameras again have got the slow-mo setting, and what they're generally shooting at is 120 or 240 frames per second. And again, the purpose of this is we're going to be able to slow that footage right down, and it is going to give you that really dramatic shot. It's going to give you a lot of nice things to work with. And a lot of the time when we're shooting, product shots, or we're shooting, maybe we're taking a picture of a, table full of coffee and things like that. We want to do a movement. We'll shoot that in slow motion because you can move fast, you can keep your hand nice and steady, and afterwards when you slow it down, it's going to give you a really lovely look. So again, using that creative use of the slow mo is a really good thing to do. A lot of phones also have an action mode, which just adds that extra level of stabilization. It's going to crop it in a bit tighter, but it's going to mean that the footage looks really, really smooth. And then when you've got a macro, that's when you're getting in really, really tight. Again, if you've got a product you're trying to shoot and you want to get in really close, that is going to be, it's going to be a great way of showing the detail of a really real close-up shot. So then we're going to think about how we're going to move. Now, this is always, as Garry sort of alluded to at the start, there is a bit of a danger that we go out and start shooting, and to make our footage more interesting, we just waggle the phone around left, right, and and do all sorts of stuff like that. And that's disorientating. It doesn't look great for the customer. It doesn't look great for the audience. And it's really hard to edit as well afterwards because you don't have this clear view of where everything's going. So I wanted to take you through the kind of key types of shots that we want to look at. So first of all, when we're thinking about shots, we've got static shots, which means that's you guys.
It's me. That's a lot of shots
of me. You're here and on the screen at the same time.
Weird.
So static shot, the camera is still, and the person, the car, something is moving in the shot. Ideally, you want a tripod for this. This isn't using a tripod. You can do it without that, but if you're going to be leaving something there for an extended period of time, you're going to want to put it on a tripod. Then a moving shot is where your camera is moving and the subject is moving and other things are moving as well. But most importantly, the camera is moving when you're taking the shot. Now, when you are holding the camera, this is a really important part of the process. So when you're holding, let's say you're holding a phone, but the same applies if you've got an actual camera as well. You want to grip the phone strongly with one hand and then use the other hand to control it. So you don't move around with this hand, you're just keeping that to hold it steady, and you use this hand to move it around as you're moving. So if you're tilting, whatever you're doing, just use this one to balance it and move around, and then keep your elbow tight and the phone close to you. It's going to give you a really solid base. So if you're out here, really hard to control it, it's waggling all over the place. But if you're in really tight, you're going to find you've got a lovely solid base. And then you need to perfect the ninja walk, which you can see in the Ministry of Silly Walks at the top there.
I really enjoyed filming this one.
That allows you to walk, to keep the camera really steady, move along. Yes. Are you going to look silly doing it? Yes, you are, I'm afraid. But you're going to have a nice solid piece of footage. You're not relying so heavily on the camera's stabilization to make that work. So that's going to give you, again, a much better piece of footage. So which lens are you going to use? And I just want to show you some examples of what the difference that makes. So here we've got Garry gazing wistfully at a tree. The 0.0, that ultra wide is great for establishing a location, great for showing where you are, showing the area around you. It does have the disadvantage that it's not great at low light, and it really messes with the things that are close to the camera because it is that wide shot. So you see that log looks really big at one end. If you get close to the person, you see their legs start to distort and stuff like that. So you be aware of that when you're shooting your footage. That one time is most versatile. That's going to give you the most options. It's a nice wide shot, but it's not so far away that it looks too distant. Then we're going to start thinking about getting in a bit closer. So if we want to get in close, get into the action, if we're shooting wildlife, we're shooting a product, we're going to want to get in nice and tight. So then we're using the 3 times or the 5 times. But the downside to those, of course, is that even the slightest bit of movement is going to give you a real shaky shot. So you look at that shot there again, not shot with a gimbal, not shot on a tripod. So it's moving a little bit. It's quite hard to keep it steady. And then finally, of course, don't overlook that front camera. Again, it's going to be less good quality, but the front cameras on most phones now are really, really strong. So you have, if you're doing a bit of explaining something, if you're talking to camera, this is usually the easiest way to get some really nice footage. As you're walking around, you've got your own sort of steady cam there right in front of your face, so you're able to do that nice and easily. And one thing, just wanted to sort of explain a little bit here about the concept of compression in an image. And this really, to be honest, the first time I learned about this, it really sort of blew my mind, the fact that this is 3 shots, 3 different lenses. Gary's in the same place, and I haven't moved the tree, but
we tried. It was a bit heavy.
It was unnecessary. So you can see there, first, the wide shot, you can see what it does is it makes Gary's look straight, a very strange shape in that. But what it does do is it pushes that tree really far away. When we come to the 1 times, the trees come closer. And by the time we're at the 5 times, the tree's really close. Now, I've had to walk quite far back to get that shot. And I'm getting further away each time. So I'm moving, the camera's moving, but the person and the subject isn't. So if you're trying to shoot something with a background and you want that background to be big, you know, this is good for if you're out taking travel videos or things like that as well. If you want to get a landmark in the background, but you want that landmark to be big, even though it's really far away, take a step back and zoom in, and you're going to get that background is going to become much larger in shot. So this is a really good way of getting more interesting shots in the background when you're a little far away from something. So thinking about the movement of the shot, again, this is where we want to avoid the waggle of things flying around all over the place. So we've got different options here. Panning is moving left to right, and tilting is going from bottom to top. So again, starting, say, at the ground, starting at the sky, and working your way around. Then we've got zooming and pushing. And generally, zooming is great if you've got a good quality piece of camera equipment or a proper camera. You're able to really control that zoom. On a phone, zoom is hard. You can pinch to zoom, you can use the dial along the bottom, but it's wobbly and shaky, and it's really hard to keep a good solid movement. However, pushing, which is where you move yourself and the camera closer to the subject, you can get quite a smooth movement there. So that generally works a little bit better. And each one of these looks fine, but actually when you start to, oh, sorry, I missed out 2 there. Booming, which is going from down up on a same vertical plane, or tracking, which is following the person as they move. And this all looks fine, but what we really like to do is if we think about what we're going to do, we can combine these together to create a really nice and a much more interesting shot. So what we're doing here is we're starting with a tilt. We come up until we see Gary. Then we're going to move into a tracking shot where we follow Gary as he's walking. Then we do a little push and a slight pan as he leaves the shot. Same as what was happening in the other ones, but much more interesting to look at, much more engaging for the audience. So think about that when you're doing your shot. Which movements are you going to use? Because again, if you just go out there and just start waggling about, you're not going to get a great piece of content. Whereas if you actually think, right, that's what I want to do. I'm going to come up, I'm going to move, and this will come, when you come into the editing, this will become even more important, because you're going to have to think about what's the shot before this shot? How will I enter this part of the content, and where am I going next? And that's something you've got to constantly think about. Do think about the rule of thirds. This is it's a photography technique. It works for video just as well. The eye is naturally drawn to those intersecting lines. So when you're thinking about your piece of content, try and position things along the lines. You'll get a much more aesthetically pleasing piece of content. But remember, if you shoot something and it doesn't quite fit with that, then you can always crop it later to adjust where the position is and things like that. We generally, I always keep the grid on in the settings on an iPhone. Same in an Android. You can go in, you can turn on the grid so you can see the grid and you can see those lines always. It also has a stabilizer and a ruler on there which tells you if your shot is level 2. So absolutely think about popping that on. Sound, we did say we're going to talk about sound as well. The one, I think the phones are amazing. They're really good for capturing really engaging content, but the sound of them can be really challenging. If you're just doing a piece to camera, that's not really a problem. Phone's really close to you. Generally, it's really good at isolating your voice and getting good stuff. But there's dog barking in the background. The truth is it's omnidirectional, the sound. So they're going to pick up sound from absolutely everywhere. So when you want to get good audio, you probably are going to have to start thinking about some kind of external mic devices. So examples here: lapel mics, great for doing interviews, great for pieces of content where you're talking to someone, and especially if the person is fairly far away from the camera, especially if you're outdoors, that's going to get you great quality audio. Or a shotgun mic like that on there is going to allow you to direction, to point where the audio is coming from a really specific location. I stress, we're talking that Joby one there is about 50 quid. The lapel mics, about 20 quid. These are not expensive pieces of equipment. So absolutely worth the investment before you go on. So think about your videos. When you think about products, think about how you're going to present your product in an interesting way. So we talked before about light boxes, but think about maybe investing in a turntable, something that you could put the product on and then you can just set it off so it's rotating, so you can create that more interesting thing. Get into the detail, show that, that's again another wonderful thing the video does, is it allows the customer to see the detail, see the,
People
the
love watching the detail.
Yeah. Show the process of how you made the thing. That could be the thing. Oh, show the packaging it comes in. Show it, you can do a mixture of stuff on a white background in a light box, and then stuff in context being used in a real scenario. So there's ways to make even a static product that is on, first blush, maybe not the most exciting thing to video. Actually, you can make it really exciting and really engaging. And then,
talking of engaging
editing, yes. So we need to think then, once we've got some great footage, we're going to need to talk about how we're going to edit it and make it look amazing together. Now, again, we have a really limited amount of time to go through stuff today, so we're just going to give you some examples of quite simple techniques you could use to create really quite engaging pieces of content. There are many different editing platforms you can use. We've got, I can't remember what it's called. I put the logo in for it. It used to be called Windows Movie Maker, but it's called something else now, Clipper or something like that, I think. I'll put the link in the email that goes out. And there's also iMovie on an iPhone, on an iPad, on iMac, or whatever else. And then on the other end of the scale, we've got Premiere, we've got Final Cut Pro, but somewhere lovely in the middle is CapCut. And CapCut is a really fabulous platform that you can use because it's on your phone, it's free. It's really, you don't need to pay for the pro version, especially if you're not using all the fancy filters and the audios and all that kind of stuff.
Actually, it's quite good not to, because you end up trying to use too much of the fancy equipment.
Yeah, it kind of makes you work a little bit smarter when you're doing it like that. So yeah, there's loads of stuff in there. You get, there's music, rights-free music included. It does do stabilization, it does masking, it does loads of really quite advanced stuff. The downside to it is that you can easily fall into the trap of using the fancy, the fancy kind of filters and mad stuff, and then it's a bit like using Canva, where stuff starts to look quite samey because everyone's got this cool thing they can do, and it can be a little bit glitchy sometimes. So if you want to edit something really significant, you probably are going to want to use a proper editing platform, but this can be a great way of getting your footage done nice and quickly, and it's what we use when we want to do something quick and easy and get that out there. So just looking at some different transitions, and this is something that you want to think about when you're doing your piece of footage. So first up, think about going from, we call this like a black to black transition. So this is essentially where the shot that you end on is the same as the shot that you're going to start on next. So this here just shows Garry wiping his hand in front of the camera, and then as the hand comes across, we change to another location. Same here, using the sky change to another location. So you can do the same thing there. You can pick any movement, move your hand in front of the screen, put something against the screen, just push into a wall, into a brick wall or something like that, but then come out from somewhere else. Same deal here with this shot here of me holding a bag and turning into Chloe. Again, it's just as simple as moving that across and then just making sure you take that cut. There's no transitions in there, no nothing else. And again, slightly more advanced here, shot we did fairly recently, where again, the back of my head is the transitional point. So you're just literally going over, coming back again, and it feels like it's actually had some fairly complicated editing done, but it's not. It's super straightforward, and it really is as easy as that. And it's all done within CapCut. And the same here is using masks. So here's
free of James.
Perfect scenario here. This is how, I mean, actually most small business owners, I think, would love to be able to do this in reality, to get not have three of me, have three of themselves. Yeah, to be able to clone yourself. And again, this is dead easy to do within CapCut. all you're doing basically is there's 3 different shots. We've got 3 different masks, and we're bringing those in one at a time. You film those. Again, it comes back to this thing of you're planning it, you shoot it, and then you can create these really nice pieces of content where you build these masks in, and you're able to do, achieve quite a lot. You can see there the mask comes across, and that's what the shot really looks like. Time lapses, we put this under editing. Really, it's often a shot type. So when you go into your phone, you will most phones will have a time lapse setting. This is a great way of showing a process. If you want to show how you do something or what your life is like at your workplace or something like that, time lapse is a great thing to do. One thing where you definitely will want a tripod. You don't want to be holding that for an extended period of time. You want to think.
You don't want to rest it on the side. So many people, you just see them sort of resting it on,
and then end up getting knocked over halfway through. So do think about what you want the story to be and what's going to be going on, and that people aren't walking in front of the thing all the time. But it can be a really, really effective way of showing passage of time, setting up something. Maybe you're showing how you started making something, then you want to show a passage of time, and then how it finished being made. That's a great, using a time lapse to show time changing is a great thing that you can do. And just before we finish, captions are really, really important. Like, it's absolutely vital that you subtitle your work. Now, you can do that natively. You can do that within CapCut. There's an automatic way of doing that. You can do it in Instagram, TikTok. These all allow you to do automatic captions. If you know you're going to use your content across multiple platforms, I would probably suggest you might want to use a transcription service so you can get the transcription done once, and then you go off and you can just import that transcription file into every channel as well. But you absolutely need to, I'll show you here, you can see you're creating the file, then you tap on the text. This is on Instagram, and that allows you to edit it. Do edit it. It will not be right. It doesn't matter. Even if your pronunciation is perfect and you enunciate every single word and talk nice and slowly, there's still a really good chance it's going to mess up some stuff. So it's absolutely important to go and check out what you actually got on there. And finally, a bit on equipment. I had a couple of questions come up. One question was about lighting. These panel lights, newer, they're made by, are fantastic, again, not terribly expensive, 100 quid or something like that, I think they were. And they're really good, really versatile, multicolored lights that you can use. We talked about a light box. These are, collapsible, portable light boxes. We're very conscious that, usually space is at a premium in a small business. So that folds down nice and small. You tuck it away when you need it, you pull it out, and it creates a really balanced light for a product shot. And then up in the top there, you've got a turntable, which again is a great thing you can use to put your product on, rotate it as you're doing your video. We've talked about mics, really, really important, tripods, and a gimbal. Like a gimbal, we've got a gimbal here as an example. This is a great one from DJI that they make. It's really small. You put it in your pocket, and it just really is fabulous for creating nice, easy bits of content. And it just means you don't have to do the ninja walk quite so much. That is a big...
Anything that stops you doing that silly walk.
That is a big advantage. So again, look at that stuff. And then finally, maybe consider drones, because they are not expensive and actually surprisingly easy to start working with if you choose to show something even bigger. And that brings us to the end, but we have got some time for questions. We were a little bit over, so apologies for cutting our question time down a little bit. But let's do some questions. What have we got?
See, this is a typical question that we can never deal with. How long does a YouTube video have to be to make money?
I don't know.
Anywhere between 5 seconds and 14 hours, 12 hours. Sorry, because that's
there are limits. But again, that's not one for us today. I would suggest going and doing a bit of research on YouTube monetization and everything like that. I certainly wish we'd monetized that video of us installing the trampoline springs. We probably would have.
Honestly,
we might have made £10.
122,000 people now.
So yeah, worth looking into that for sure.
Best software for animation.
Yeah, and again, like there's lots of stuff out there. You can use, After Effects is really, really powerful. I don't have the same, when it comes to, we use After Effects and we use Motion for both those two, but they're probably a bit more on the higher end, a bit more of a steeper learning curve. But definitely, if you're doing stuff like that,
you're going to do. But I think they're worth it as well. So, point of view, I think, is a classic one. It doesn't require massive amounts of special equipment. It probably just requires you to get a stand, some form of stand to put it on, really, because realistically it has to be something that's stable, because you're going to be moving around when you're doing that point of view, so there's going to be activity, so don't rest it.
You've got a tripod that you can get a good tripod, and then what you have is a cantilever that allows you to put a camera straight above you looking down. So a lot of time, if you're trying to do something like that, you'll be able to use a top-down camera, which is a great way of doing sort of an unboxing or showing the process.
Gary, please can you tell me how to shoot at those times? Do I need to change my camera settings, or is it that I have to edit the video, or is there an app to help? I'm not sure I'm following. Shoot at those times. Is it just the speed you were going at, maybe?
Oh, to change the frame rates?
Yeah.
So there are, what you'll notice is when you're looking on your phone, you'll look at the camera, you'll see in the top right-hand corner, usually says 4K, and then there's a number, 30, 60, whatever that may be. If you tap on those, you can change it. Now, if you go into the camera settings, we didn't go into this in a lot of detail again for time, but if you go into your settings on an iPhone and click camera, or same on an Android, you will see all of the defaults are in there, and you can change all the defaults to be the ones that you want to use all the time.
Miss Sanders, the zooming in, how else do I zoom in apart from the screen? That is literally where what we call the push, where you're actually creating the zoom yourself by going in, which if you're holding the camera properly, is a really steady way of doing it. If you've got a really good camera, you're probably better off using the camera to do it. If you've got a phone, then you're better off physically doing it yourself.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to get a smooth, even on if you're on a DSLR, or even on a like a full-on commercial video camera. It's really hard to get a smooth zoom. So again, be wary of that, because it can be difficult.
Keep scrolling down to Tracy. What that? I can't seem to get the speech over when I can't seem to get the speech over when I'm talking. Do I need an app to do that?
Can't seem to get the speech over when I'm talking. So what do we think we're saying there? I mean,
is that just physically?
You might mean captions.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, you don't need. I mean, what I would say is that the native caption creation is really good if your voice is really clear, and you can, it can understand you. If it can't, if you've got a particular accent, or perhaps talking, maybe English isn't your first language, for example, it can really struggle with that stuff. But that is when your kind of transcription places are way, way better, because they're using a bit of AI and usually a bit of human interaction as well. So yes, that's not free. You will probably have to pay for that, but not very much. And it's absolutely worth doing, especially if you're producing something that's quite long, because then you'll be able to say, you actually put in what your first language is, and they'll allow for that accent, and allow to be able to get that stuff right.
I'll do a speed one. What was the brand of the light panel?
Newer.
That's one that we've used a lot, and we would recommend. We've talked about subtitles and low cost. Drone versus 360. I mean, that comes back to what is it you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, like if let's say you're a B&B, a hotel, something like that. The kind of, I know lots of hotels that invested in like a Matterport camera, which allows you to do those full 360s of rooms that you can move between, even for small hotels, small B&Bs, places like that. Drone, you could do a 360 with a drone. You can do that again indoors. Pretty tricky, noisy, bit dangerous. But you absolutely can do that. So again, it just all comes back to what you want to, what you're trying to achieve, what you want to get across, and how do you want to do that.
I feel like we'd better hand back to what we'll do is we'll get a copy of the questions, and then we'll answer some of those on the Instagram channel later. We'll do that so we don't miss any of those. And if you've got any more questions, we've missed them, then obviously just go to the channel and post them at us there, and we'll do it there.
Massage, yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Garry and James. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I really loved watching your videos and transitions you did. Amazing stuff, and everyone has loved it as well. Lots of love for you in the chat here. There's more free learning and advice over on the Lloyds Bank Academy website, so if you want a bit more information, there's a creating engaging social media content and an introduction to media relations. It's all free. You don't have to be a Lloyds Bank customer. do follow the guys over on Instagram. They do loads of really helpful lives and follow-up Q&As from the session. So if you didn't get your question answered today, or you think of something a little bit later, do head over to Future Mantis Instagram. If you've got any more questions, please do email us at hello@smallbusinessbritain.uk. I think that's it from us today. Any final words, Garry and James, before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, please, do the feedback on there. We always love to hear how people are, are using the stuff, and
just don't overthink it. Like I would point out, those videos, we intentionally did those brand new on Monday because we wanted to show how simple and easy it was. We spent an hour and a half in a park. We shot everything you see there was done in 1.5 hours, and that included looking after our 2 kids at the same time
with 20 years of preparation.
Yes.
You made it look so easy. And looking after the kids. Wow.
And looking after the kids.
That's how we roll. But get out there, give it a go, create something, and share. Like, tag us in, share it with us as well. Because we'd love to see if you go out and you produce a piece of content on the back of this workshop. I would absolutely love to see
and we'll share
that as well. Because don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to just crack on and have a go at it. It's not as intimidating as it first appears.
I love it. I think that's a great note to end on today. Please do scan the QR code. Let us know what you think. It helps us shape future webinars for you guys as well. Right, I'm going to let all of you go. Thank you so much once again, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you, everybody.
See you again. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.